In this session, we're going to see how to factor out the greatest common factor. Now let's read our helpful hint. Write each number as a product using only prime factors. Then align all common prime factors. When forming the greatest common factor, choose factors that are common to every term and use the smallest power on these common factors. After factoring, double check to see if the product is factored completely. Now let's work a problem. We want to factor 2x squared y minus 6xy squared. First step is to find the greatest common factor. To do that, we're going to take each one of these terms, 6xy squared and 2x squared y, and we're going to factor the numerical part, and we're going to line up common factors. So 6 is 2 times 3, x times x times y squared. 2 is already factored down to the prime factors. We line up the x squared under the x and the y under the y squared. So we factor the numerical part and we line up common factors. Now, to find the greatest common factor, we want to take the smallest power on like factors. So it helps to put a 1 where it's not visible on each of these. Then we draw a line and we look for the common factor. The smallest factor that appears on either one is 2 to the 1. This is not a common factor, so we don't use 3. Both numbers have the x variable as a factor, but we want the smallest power, so it's x to the 1. Same on the y. We have y squared and y1, we want the smallest power. So our greatest common factor is 2xy. This is the term we're going to factor out of our problem over here. To factor out the greatest common factor, we write 2xy times a binomial. And this times this will equal that. So now we begin our factoring process. What we want is 2xy times what equals this term? Well, as we can see, x, and let's check. 2xy times x gives us 2x squared y. Now minus, and let's look for the second term, 6xy squared. We have to multiply the 2 times the 3. We have xy squared, so we need a y here. And again, check. 2 times 3 is 6. Xy times y is xy squared. So factoring, we have 2xy times x minus 3y. Now remember, always double check your product to make sure it equals your original term, and be sure you find the greatest common factor correctly. Now I want to show you a common mistake students make. Check your work. Is this what you got for your answer? If that's the case, this means that you didn't completely factor the problem. We still have a common factor here. We have x's and we have y's that are common to both terms. When this happens, it means you didn't find the greatest common factor. But here's what you can do to still get the correct answer. When you think you're done factoring, check inside the parentheses, make sure you do not have any more common factors. If you do, continue the factoring process. We write down our 2, we make our parentheses, and we look at our common factors. Here we have an x and an x to the 1. We take the smallest power on the common factors, which is an x. Now let's look at the y's. We have a y1 and a y to the second power. We take the y to the first power because we take the smallest power. Now we continue our problem. We say 2xy times what term will give us the original problem. And as you can see, we need an x right here because 2xy times x gives us 2x squared y. Now we do the same thing with the second term. We say 2xy times what gives us our 6xy squared. Well, we have a 3 and a y. And we end up with the same answer, but we had to do a second set of factoring. So it really does help to find the greatest common factor on the first try, but always check your final answer to make sure you don't have any more common factors. Then you'll surely get the right answer.